halfway into the championship, and Martin Lawrence leads the way, but all of that could change today with the wet weather here at Suzuka. Hello everybody, welcome back to the RCI Friday GT Sprint Challenge. I'm Tim Peck, joined today in the commentary booth by Austin Devonshire and Stewie on the broadcast. Welcome into the booth, Austin. Wet weather here in qualifying. Is that going to make a very interesting qualifying session today?
Yeah, always does, always does. I mean, I was looking at the M6s at the moment in practice. They weren't the fastest cars out there, but I mean, was it Tom? Obviously, spectating Tom Bryant now is going very sideways in the connection lost racing
Oh
car. I
God.
think he's lost traction there as well. Steve bringing up the replay for us there, and yeah, it just seems like he lost it on. Oh, maybe a bit of a bump. No, that's the curb just unsettled the car and sent that round. No, again, to answer your question there, Tim, no, it's going to be a really interesting qualifying session.
Yeah, the rain absolutely does shake things up. I was going to say we'll just gloss over what happened with Tom Bryant there, but Stewie making sure we all saw exactly what happened going over the inside curb. Currently on the screens is Jaroslav Roth for the Connection Lost Racing team. Has already won a race in this season, looking to make that a double here today at Suzuka. And like you just said, Austin, this track, the rain, hands it to the Aston Martin. The Aston Martin just notoriously known as a car to perform slightly better in the rain, whereas the M6, which Martin Lawrence is driving, not so much. So a couple of drivers going across the line now. This will be starting their first lap of the qualifying session. 15 minutes drivers get in this championship. So used to in the past seasons getting only 10 minutes, but that extra 5 minutes, Austin, it can really make all the difference. It gives you just that couple of extra laps to get in that fast lap. And yeah, like I said, 5 minutes, it can make all the difference in qualifying.
Oh yeah, especially when conditions are unpredictable. And obviously, these guys, you know, if you've been practicing in the dry all week, you know, obviously a week separating the events. If you're practicing in the dry and it suddenly starts raining, you need to start getting used to sort of like how the car's going to feel, the little inconsistencies and things like that. So, you know, finding that kind of, finding that kind of consistency is a whole lot more difficult. So having the ability to kind of just take it easy, put a banker lap in, get a time on the board, and then have the delta to sort of know where to improve, know where you're losing time, and be able to sort of work around that. No, that's invaluable.
Exactly. Unlike Tom Bryant, drivers will want to be consistent in their laps here today. Watching Jaroslav Roth so far been on the track. It went a little bit wide a bit earlier on in the lap, but I think managed to keep it within the line, so that will be still a valid lap time. But we'll see what they can do here. Again, just getting a little bit unsettled is the car towards the outside of the corner there. That is the spoon that they've just gone through. Now heading down towards that final sector. But overall, a good looking lap from the Connection Lost Racing driver. Of course, we've got 5 Connection Lost Racing cars in this championship, Martin Lawrence being one of them, Jaroslav Roth being another, Tom Bryant actually being the 5th car as well. So a lot of Connection Lost Racing cars being quite dominant in this championship, and we're going to see now as Roth approaches the line what the time is going to be for today to beat in the qualifying.
You know, this banking lap is going to be kind of like the most important of the lot, really, as we're going to cross the line that's a good like 7 or 8 seconds slower than it would be in the dry, and that's a 2:08.192, followed by Willemot, only what 0.003 of a second behind there as well. So it looks like it's going to be quite packed. Again, that Ferrari looks quick too. That Ferrari was head of the practice timesheet.
Yeah, Grant Willemot looking very strong here today. Like you said, headed the practice session, just 300ths off Roth as well so far in the qualifying. I'm looking at how the track is going to adapt across the qualifying. Of course, the rain starting to ease a little bit as we get towards the end of the 10 minutes. The forecast is to indicate anything, and that in itself is going to help the lap time speed up. So it's looking like here it may be a case of whoever gets across that line last in this qualifying session, but still within time to set one more qualifying lap, they are going to have the quickest run on the best track possible. So we'll see how that goes for them. Here is Marvin Steer, the 91 of MVN Racing. They are currently the leader in the championship for the silver split cars. You have merged both the splits together, so you've got the pro split and the silver split now in the same session. see what Steer can do with that, whether they can put a couple of pro cars between them and the nearest silver competitor. Of course, that does give the opportunity for the silver drivers as well to race the pro cars. There's no rule against the splits racing each other. There's no rule saying that a silver car has to move out of the way if a pro car is behind them as well. So yeah, that gives some of the silver cars an opportunity to put themselves up there amongst the other pro cars. And right now we see Joshua Elation in the 97 Ferrari actually in 7th place overall, just 3 places ahead of Steer at the moment, who put themselves in 10th. And Martin Lawrence, the leader of the championship, now coming across the line, setting himself a time of a 2:07. That puts him on provisional pole as well. So yeah, it looks like also it's just going to be one of those sessions where the next person to cross the line going to be massive gains. The rain still easing up the more we get into the quali.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to ease up, but then get harder again in about half an hour time. But we're not obviously going to see that, given how much time's left in the session. Yeah, Lawrence being in provisional pole, as you were saying, again, interesting, because we were just saying just how strong the Aston Martin was in the wet, and seeing the M6 up there. I mean, as I say, that's advancing. I believe in the M4, the newer of the BMW. There we see it on screen there, the number 11. The newer GT3 car that only came out recently. It only came out, I want to say, what, about 8-9 months ago. Although I'm probably really overestimating that one. But no, it's a fairly recent car. It's a new car. It's I'll say new. It's fairly new. So you'd expect it to be quite strong here as well, and it's a good thing actually. I was going to say as well, Tim. Yeah, in the 91, it's good seeing some Lamborghini representation.
Absolutely, yeah. It's good to see a couple of Lambos in the championship. One of those cars that tends to not get so much love in ACC. Not a lot of people drive that car, but yeah, like you said, Steer currently winning the championship as well with that number 91 Lamborghini. That's going to be something to talk about if they manage to hold on to that lead. Salenskus in the BMW M4 crossing the line. That puts them up into P6 there. Another fighter in the Pro Championship towards the top, currently down in Vardsen, holding that pole position, a time of a 2:06.8, 3 tenths ahead of Martin Lawrence, who's in second, 6 tenths ahead of Grant Willamot in the Ferrari, who holds P3 there. Here's Conrad Jackson in the 1-2-3 BMW. What can they do? Have they got enough time? It looks like they're on a huge gain right now, enough to put them up towards that P3 slot, but coming down now through the final corners, they do have to hold that delta together. And it looks like, again, 9 tenths up on their lap. What's it going to be, though, by the time they cross the line? And with further rain seeding, I keep saying it, Austin, it's just going to come down to the line, I think. We've had a change in the pole sitter several times now in the past 2 minutes, and it looks like it's going to keep going that way. Jackson, though, able to improve on their time, puts himself up into 8th. Down in Vardsen, still holding that pole time now, so it looks like the 2:06.8. That's going to be the time to beat now, going towards the final 6 minutes of quali.
Yeah, no, that's not far off a lot of people's dry times. I mean, again, it goes to show just how fast these people, these guys are. Is why they're in the pro split. These guys are phenomenal in terms of just pace and adapting to the conditions. Obviously, I go on to coming through Spoon now, only a second down. That's a very good point as well, Tim. The first 12 cars are all separated. The first 13 cars really are only separated by just over a second. So no, it's going to be stacked, I think, at the top. Something that Stewie brought to my attention, by the way, the M4 released on the 22nd of November 21. So as recent as it is, it's still been in the game a while.
Yeah, a whole year that car has been released now, but I agree with you. I think it feels very, very recent with that car's release. Of course, the M4 coming out over a year ago, but it feels much more recent than that. Going back to what you're saying about everyone in the top 13 being split by just about a second, of course, the person in that 13th place is Joshua Elation. They are in that silver split, so starting at the front for the silvers is Elation. That will be a good start for them. Orns, we just saw crossing the line, promoting themselves up from 12th place all the way up into 7th. Ladies, that's going to be a better start for them as well. And we often talk about how important is qualifying in a sprint race? Well, it is, of course, it's an hour-long race. As Christoph Verstappen, they're going straight into the wall. I think they were planning on pitting anyway, but doing it in a showcasey way. Verstappen going into the wall at the first turn there. But yeah, we talk about how important it is a qualifying position. Of course, you want to be at the top, especially since the race is only an hour long rather than the endurance races that we also stream us in. But I'd say today, damp track here at Suzuka. Suzuka's one of those circuits where you can pull off an overtake. With the rain coming down, it's a lot harder to pull it off. And I think most likely today, qualifying going to be very, very important, as it could be where you finish, especially in this championship as well, where races have been won basically from whoever's been in that pole position.
That's it. And again, if you're up front, you have to always be kind of aware of who's behind you, what they're doing. Ask yourself if they're actually going to make a move at any point, because so much more can go wrong trying to overtake in the wet. There's not as much grip. Corner speeds are entirely different. Braking zones are different. And I think if it's still wet for the race, the spray going down into T1 is going to be interesting, shall we say. When you're like 3, 4, 5 cars back, you can't see what's in front of you. And T1 at Suzuka is surprisingly quick, because it's kind of a hairpin, isn't it? It's like it goes T1, T2, but it's like one flowing kind of corner. I believe they're separated there at least, but no, it's quite it's a faster corner than what people give it credit for, I think.
Yeah, like you said, the spray going down towards turn 1 is going to be killer, especially if you're one of the cars in the mid-pack there. You're not going to have a whole lot of vision. We saw Rybecki there in the other Connection Loss racing car push themselves up into P18. And another reason why qualifying is so important here today as well is that, like we said, there's a merge split, so you've got both the pro and the silver drivers here. If you're one of the pro drivers, you do not want to be stuck behind a load of silver cars, mostly because you're not then competing for points in the championship. If you overtake someone, that's only going to be pushing you a bit further up the field, but it's not going to grant you any more points. But then on the flip side, if you're a silver driver, you want to be up there mixed in with the pros, because then the people behind you, they're still a threat, yes, but if they overtake you, you're not losing out on any positions as well. So Southcott in the 619 Ferrari puts himself into pole for the silver split. Edvardsson still holding the pole with that time in the BMW M4 with the 206, but now they've pushed it up to a 206.4. Grant Willimot 3/10 behind has improved and put themselves in the 206 as well. That puts them up in second place. And again, that Ferrari looking like it's performing the best today. The Aston Martin, Christoph Verstappen and Jaroslav Roth, who's on your screen right now, only able to get themselves up into 5th and 6th respectively. So today it looks like the Ferrari having an edge on track at Suzuka.
No, Joseph Roth on actually a bit of a lap as we're talking about them actually there, Tim, coming across the line in just a moment, actually looking on for a really good time indeed. Coming across the line in just a moment. Where will they come out? It'll be P2 overall. So there we go. A big jump up there from Jaroslav Roth.
And just 0.02 of a second off Edvardsson there. Roth slightly missing out on that pole position. Will be starting alongside the BMW driver though. Giorgio Megazi in the Mercedes about to cross the line. Now they're improving on their lap time. What can they do from 13th up into what position that going to be? Up into P6 for Megazi there. A good improvement for the Mercedes driver. Puts them at the front of all the Mercedes on the field. Currently, Martin Lawrence, your championship leader, fallen down to P5. They're going to be trying to look to improve in their final quali lap. But here's Philippe Gretcher about to cross the line now. Down in P10, it's another Connection Loss racing driver. Can they improve their position? They are up on their lap time here, and it will help them gain a good couple of places. Looking like a P5 if they can hold it together going across the line. It's enough for a P6. That is Philippe Gretcher's final lap though for qualifying. Not able to cross the line before the clock hits 0 there. They will start at P6 if no one else around them improves. Of course, though, the rain letting up now is in the best place it has been all qualifying. That means drivers are going a lot faster. Christoph Verstappen hoping to be one of those drivers that improve themselves a bit further up the field. Not used to starting P10 is Verstappen.
No, I was actually just about to say that, Tim. Verstappen's one of those names, we see it. I've said this before on stream, and I'll say it again. Verstappen's one of those names where you see them in a race or you see them in a server, you expect them to be close to the top three. You know, incredibly quick, incredibly consistent drivers, won several, you know, kind of championships with us here at RCI. It's not, as you say, it's not. It's not common. It's not. It's hard to get used to seeing the names that so far down. But again, these conditions, that's exactly kind of they make it harder to kind of get a lap in. You know, little invalidations, especially here at Suzuka, coming through the Degners. It's so easy to kind of like ease the car off onto the verge, and lose the validation on the lap. Coming across the line now, will it be an improvement? It will be. That's P3. That's only 2.5 tenths off of pole. That's crazy.
That's the lap that Verstappen needed to push them back up into that podium position. Like you said, a known championship winner. And I think the last time we commented on championship together, Austin, Verstappen was winning them left, right, and centre. So finishing P3 in quali, that is where they want to be. Martin Lawrence now crossing the line. Can they improve their pole position onto pole position? Sorry, no, it's only enough for P4 for the championship leader right now. They've got a lot of climbing to do in the race. A couple more cars left to cross the line. Kwiatkowski, one of those drivers, a pro split driver, currently in the middle of all the silvers, will want to improve out of that position, hopefully put themselves in more of a fighting chance in the race, but crossing the line can't improve. They will start P28. So let's have a look now at how the timetables are after the qualifying session. Dan Evardson on that pole position. They will start in P1. Jaroslav Roth in P2, and Christopher Streppen will round out top three. Martin Lawrence in P4, they're your championship leader. Grant Willamot in the Ferrari looking very good and fast today in P5, and Jackson in P6, and those are the rest of the qualifying positions. Of course, if you look further down the field, you've got Rilano in the BMW 89. They are your leader for the silver split. F in the 44 is your person in second place for the silver split. And then if you go a bit further down, the 619 driver Southcott in the Ferrari, they're in P16 overall, but they'll be starting third in the silver. And wow, what a qualifying session. Like I said, Austin, it all came down to that final lap. It was all about who could get the best run in the wets. Well, here are your championship standings. Martin Lawrence, P1 in the championship, has 134 points. Jaroslav Roth, driving also in the Connection Lost Racing team, they have 122 points. They are P2. Christopher Streppen just managed to secure themselves into that third place in qualifying. They are P3 in the championship with 116 points. Joint P4 with 101 points are Philippe Brecher and Thomas Ehrentraut. Dan Edvardson in P6 has 93 points. Thomas Freck, 88 points there, P7. Michael Herman Frey, 68 points there, P8. And then joint ninth, 60 points, is Grant Willamot and Kubaki in the Nissan. I got Orns there in P11 right now. They've 58 points. Rybecki, they have 56 points there, P12. Salenskus, 51 points, just 1 point ahead of Danny Santos in P14. Martin Lindrup, driving the Audi, has 44 points. They are P15. Conrad Jackson, 16th place, is 38 points, just 2 points ahead of Kwiatkowski in 17th with 36 points, who's 1 point ahead of Ted Edwards. Had a interesting couple of comeback drives, has Ted Edwards. They have 35 points though, and they are in P18. Giorgio Migazi fighting further up the field today, currently down in 19th place in the championship, has 33 points, and Ruta Billen has 30 points. They round out the top 20. And Jordan Daly has 12 points there, P21. Marek Polak, 9 points, is P22. And Tom Bryant has no points yet. They're in P23. Everyone else with the little hyphen next to their name was in the championship originally, but has since signed out. Well, why don't you take away the standings here for the silver split, Austin?
Okay, so in first place in the silver split, we've got Marvin Stier with 141 points. In P2, you got Nick Effer with 108, trailed by Romar Rolano with only 106, only 2 points behind. Joshua Lation coming in at 97 points, raced by Mohammed Afif Suhami in the Bentley. Actually, good to see some Bentley representation with 92 points. Stephen Van Kampen in P6 with 86 points. P7, Stefano Ricciardo with 81 points. Reese Wilkinson with 80. P9 is Chris van der Linde with 74 points. And Chris Southcott rounds up P10 with 71. P11, you got Martinez Kusakas with 71 points. P11, you got Francesco Finara with 60 points. 13th is Abel Dos Ramos, trailed by Jon Gohan. Ibiza Racer coming in P15. P16, Louis Villamas with 21 points. 19 points with Ryan Daniels in 17th. 18th is Roberto Graziani with 14 points, and 19th is Alessio Bonafede, and 20th is Jacob Maj with no points between the two. So, and signed out. Yeah, everyone with the dash is signed out of the championship.
Well, we're about to head into the race now. A lot of fighting going to be going on across the field today. You have Dan Edvardsen, the green car that you see on your screen, in that pole position place. Jaroslav Roth for Connection Loss Racing starting in P2. They're looking to try and get their second win of the championship so far. P3, you've got Christopher Streppen in the yellow and black car. And then P4, Martin Lawrence in that Connection Lost Racing livery as well. Grant Willamot in the Ferrari there on the left side of your screen. On the right in the all-black livery is Conrad Jackson. The rest of the field lining up behind them. And the rain still pouring as we start to head towards today's race. 1 hour is the race time. Austin, you've also got a pit stop that has to be taken in the middle of the race. I believe the pit window opens at I want to say 35 minutes remaining, and then it closes at 25 minutes remaining in the race. So it's a 10-minute pit window as well. Usually in these championships, we have pit window span the entire race, but this time round we are forcing it into that small clump in the middle. Can cause a mad dash, I'd say, for the pit stops at the middle of the race, and doesn't leave much opportunity for a strategy out there. But an hour-long race in the rain, a lot can happen in that time, and unfortunately the other problem with that is if the rain does let up, which it's not likely to, you can't pit outside of that pit window for a fresh set of tyres. That could force 2 pit stops in today's race.
It could. I mean, it's going to be an interesting strap for sure. I mean, we don't get to see these conditions all too often, and no, it's going to be interesting to see how people adapt to it. Especially if it's changeable, as you're saying, especially if it's changeable conditions, or even if a dry line just starts to form. I mean, there's a lot of cars out in the field right now, and as wet as it is, it just means that more water does get displaced. As you know, even in the formation lap, you can see the spray, and that's just water that was on the circuit, and it's kind of just been lifted into the air. So, I mean, it's anyone's game, really.
Absolutely is anyone's game, and well, today there are a couple of people that are going to be fighting to try and bring home that victory. Dan Edvardsen starting a pole. Those that they have the pace today, they're going to be looking to try and take this from pole to first place. Jaroslav Roth, though, wants to make this the second win of the season. Martin Lawrence, I'm sure, would love to make it their third win of the season. They're currently leading the championship. They're starting down in P4. Christopher Streppen, yet to win a race so far, but is sitting P3 in the championship overall. They're starting in P3 as well. And Grant Willamot, who we know has a lot of pace in that Ferrari today, they had several good lap times there in the qualifying session, and they were the fastest in practice as well. So top 5, any one of them can take it. Of course, anyone outside the top 5 could come and surprise us today as well. A lot of drivers on the field have a lot of potential, and we're just going to have to see how it goes. Further down in the silver split, we've got Omar Rilano starting in pole position, and the championship leader for silver split, Marvin Steer, they're starting down in P22. That is 9 places behind where Rilano is starting. So it's going to be an interesting fight in the silver championship as well. And yeah, I expect there's going to be a lot to play for here. Yeah, I'd like to take a quick moment to mention our partners before the race starts. I'm only going to name them. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but we have AKE Sports, Digital Motorsports, Driver 61, Go Setups, and Fenatech. I will talk more about them after the race has ended. And yeah, coming down now, we're just navigating through the field. Austin, a lot to play for. what do you think we're going to see today? Who are you giving your points to in this race?
I honestly, I don't know. I don't have a particular favorite, but I do think that if Verstappen's got any decent chance of scoring like maximum points in a race this season so far, this might be it. Starting P3 in a car that's very strong in the wet, and that's Yaroslav Roth in front of them as well. So also in the Aston. So depending on how much pressure Edvardsen gets put under, I think there could be a fight between the two Astons, and Verstappen knows that this is going to be his best shot at getting a maximum points result this season.
Absolutely, like you said, the Aston Martin known to perform well in the wet weather. We've got two in that top three, starting P2 and P3. So Edvardsen has a lot on their hands if they want to defend going down towards the first turn. And already you can see Jaroslav Roth in that connection lost racing team trying to get as much alongside as the game will allow with the BMW coming down towards the start-finish line here. Of course, Christopher Verstappen, like you said, wants to try and capitalise off this as well. Going down towards turn 1 though, it's going to be the P1 and P3 with the advantage. They'll have that inside line. That being said, the outside line can be good. Dry weather in the wet, probably not going to be the case. Well, the race is now starting to unfold as the drivers cross the line. It looks like a huge start for Jaroslav Roth there. Good bit of thrust coming over the start-finish line. And Edvardsen starting to get a little bit swallowed up by the connection loss racing driver who throws himself around the outside but just can't find the grip in this wet weather, and that's going to help the BMW stay ahead going through turn 1, managing to sort out the top 3 as they now approach the S turns. Further down the field though, a lot of cars neck and neck with each other, yet to be an accident yet though, which is what we like to see here in the wet weather. A lot of cars navigating their way through the field now, trying to find a bit of room, and it looks like, I don't want to do a commentator's curse just yet, Orson, but it looks like a very safe turn 1.
I'm not entirely certain. I believe I saw, I think it might have been Steer in a light blue Lamborghini. It looked like a light blue Lamborghini at least. Off onto the gravel in T1. Didn't hit anyone luckily, but I did see a teal car off onto the gravel there. So, as clear as it can be, at least it didn't make it. Speaking of off on the gravel, is that a CLR car? Is that what, or is that one of the Mercedes? I can't tell. Again, off at the Degners. A little bit messy, a little bit, you know, a few cars going for some off-road excursions, but overall, very, very tidy. Verstappen still in third, sandwiched between the CLR cars of Lawrence and Roth, and that's still advancing up front too, so no change at the top of the order, everyone making it through the hairpin at least, and at least a few cars having to pull a bit of a recovery drive to get back to where they were.
You are right, that was Marvin Steer going off at turn 1 into the gravel. There, they now find themselves dead last at the back of the field. That's not what they want as they try to hold on to the Silver Championship. Martin Lawrence, P4, currently unable to find anything going through turn 1, but it's hardly surprising. I mean, Jaroslav Roth there had such a phenomenal start. They were on that throttle super early. And actually, I think by the time that we got to that first turn, I believe the Aston Martin was ahead of the BMW. The problem was there was Edvardsen just having that inside line, being able to defend against Roth there, and there wasn't a lot Roth could do to capitalise off that advantage they gained at the beginning. But Verstappen just slotting themselves in nicely into that P3 position. Started in P3, didn't have to do too much to hold on to it. But oh, what we've got here, it looks like a bit of contact coming through the final chicane between Racer and the Honda ahead. Gohan, we're going to have a race replay here, see if it was anything major. 3 wide, wow, and yeah, it was. One of the cars just outbraking themselves.
Oh, and a bit of a pile behind too.
Yeah, but as I was saying, sorry, the looks like the black car there, I believe that's Racer, or is that the car ahead of, no, it was Marge there, just outbraking himself going down towards the final chicane, and Racer having to navigate their way through that without too much contact. Tom Bryant up into P20 after the first lap. Of course, they have a good chance there of not finishing dead last in the pro split, so Tom Bryant going to be hoping to try and not finish last in that. They've got Frey, Kauleskas and Linjup as well just behind them, and Joshua Lation, who I believe started P3 in silver, has fallen a couple of places as well. And this is a race replay of earlier on in the race. It's Tom Bryant getting himself a little bit off track and slight contact as well with the 971 car behind. But all in all, a fairly tame race start for a wet day at Suzuka.
We've definitely seen worse. No, that's the Ferrari almost outbreaking itself a little bit there as well as we come back to rejoin the race. No, also worth saying, we do have live stewarding for this race too, so we can always keep an eye on the comments on the stewarding box, and we get handed little pieces of paper to basically show, you know, who's been a bit naughty. You know, we might see the odd time penalty up here and there, but I mean, so far, as you say, everything's been relatively clean so far. That's always subject to change. Marsh went for a bit of a bomb down into the Casio triangle, but again, it's so hard to get the braking right, especially if you're going 3 wide. You know, you want to outbrake everyone around you, but it comes with the risk of just overshooting it. That is Frey as well, the number 26, the 181 Pro class, with the fastest lap of the race so far, and that's an accident down at 130R.
What happened there? I just saw the aftermath of that with 2 cars flying into the wall. It looks like F and I think that's Polash they must have made contact with there, because it wasn't a connection loss racing car, it was Polash. Returned to the pits actually. We're going to get a race replay, see exactly what happened. Here's F and Polash now, side by side. Yep, making slight contact, and then does F... F just making contact.
Side by side does not work through 130R. It's such a high speed corner in the dry. It's literally about 50 meters out, drop down a gear, ease off the throttle, flick the car in, back on the power. You barely, in a good setup, you don't even touch the brakes for 130R. You can't go too wide through there in the dry, let alone in the wet. And that was heavy contact. And oh, man, ow. I felt that from the box.
Yeah, that was a heavy contact with the wall there. Not just that, but the cars that had to navigate their way around that as well. I think Tom Bryan making a near miss there on those 2 cars colliding ahead of them. Well, here's Jackson, who's up in 5th place. They found their way through the Ferrari of Grant Willemot, and you can see from the rear wing now back on the Ferrari behind. Daniel Vardsson securing purple speed juice, fastest lap of the race at the front. Roth just 8 tenths behind, just trying to keep that gap within at second. For now, Verstappen 5 tenths behind Roth. Those 3 still holding their original positions. Martin Lawrence as well in P4. But Jackson, so far, a car to make an overtake on track. They find themselves up into P5. And Grant Willemot, who had a lot of pace in both practice and qualifying here, seems to be just struggling to get some grip on the track. Oh no, what's happened behind this? He goes straight to the wall, catching the front of Philippe Bretsch, and the car's still connected now, going down the straight.
I mean, I never thought we'd find out where baby Mercedes come from, but that's just the 2 Mercedes getting rammed into each other. It looked like a little bit of netcode there as well. It looked like one of the Mercedes kind of came across the other one and then just kind of bounced off into the wall and just sort of stuck together. Looked like a little bit of netcode sort of occurring, but I don't know. Let's just say, when we said that it was a relatively tame race start, the stewards are definitely going to have their work out now, as Ibiza Racer just overshooting that a little bit too. Ibiza Racer, I don't even be able to tell that from the livery actually. And that's one of the CLR cars getting a little bit of a wiggle. I believe that might actually be, oh god, that's Bretcher. Yeah, no, that's Bretcher who had a little bit of a wiggle. So that car must have sustained some damage.
That is, I caught that initial incident out of the corner of my eye then. Oh, Philippe Bretcher, they're going for a full spin on the first turn. Now the car is facing the wrong way. It looks like that Mercedes has picked up damage, and retiring into the pit lane goes Philippe Bretcher. But yeah, going back to the instance that we saw right at the front, I saw it happen at the corner of my eye. We were watching from the rear wing of Jackson there, and I just caught those 2 Mercedes drivers spinning and facing the wrong way out the corner of my eye. And that's the thing, is when the track is wet weather, a slight tap like that, it's impossible to catch it, because in dry weather it's hard enough to catch your car when it's starting to spin, but in the wet weather, when the traction's really low and you have no grip at all, that is when it's almost impossible to catch it. Joshua Lation for the Spinala Motorsport Ferrari 97. They are now climbing their way through the field. Started, I believe, in P22, finding themselves up in P18 currently, so slowly climbing their way through the field right now. They're fighting Martin Lindrup. This is not for position in their championship, in their split, sorry, but it will be for position in the race overall, and it will help just put a buffer between the Bentley behind two. Tom Bryant just ahead. They're going to be fighting Martin Lindrup. This is for position. You can see the fight unfolding here from Lation's screen. And oh, what's happened here? It looks like another car entering the wall. This is Francesco Finara just spinning this time around. Not entering the wall, never mind, but just losing grip coming out of the corner there.
Yeah, it looked like just going through Spoon, I think it was, just kind of just dragging the gravel. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, again, Lation wanting to put a bit of a gap between themselves and the Bentley of Suhaimi. I've been teammates on teams with Suhaimi in the past, and yeah, no, incredibly quick driver. Not someone you want bearing down on you. So definitely wants the gap, as that's Frank going for a little bit of a move there, but it's all good. They made it stick. It worked. Rolano always been incredibly quick as well. I believe we actually, one of the first races I saw them on was around here, and in the GT4 Alpines. Incredibly quick driver as well. Something I want to bring to note, by the way, Tim. We've only had one incident so far mentioning the live stewarding, and that was for the leader of the silver class of Steer. That was lap 1, turn 16, involving cars 91 and 137. 15-second time penalty for car 91. So that will be the championship leader in silver class, that of Soul Lamborghini, that's out on track. So if you saw a 15-second time penalty come up in the left hand side of your screen, there we go, down at the bottom there, 91. That is why.
That's unfortunate, because they currently have a 33-point lead in the championship. It's not looking like it's going to be that way after this round is over. Steer currently find themselves in that 29th position with the 15-second penalty. They'll probably serve with the pit stop as well. Reese Wilkinson in the number 6 Ferrari here, looking to fight their way up the field, currently in P22. There's a pro split car of Herman Fry between them and the 420, which is Bukauskas there. But Wilkinson just trying to find a way through. They're going to have to clear both the Porsche driver and the BMW if they want to get any extra points in the race. The good news for them is that Fry, a very fast driver in the pro split, not used to being that far down the field themselves. They're P8 in their championship overall, so hopefully for Wilkinson here, Fry can clear the BMW fairly quickly. But again, what I'm noticing across the board here is the Ferrari looking like a fairly powerful car. Of course, it's a good all-rounder car, Austin, but it's not usually one that you credit with being so good in the rain. It just looks like today, though, it's performing fairly well across the board.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a lot of things. It could be just the current update, the current bop of the game on this particular track. It could just be that the Ferrari drivers are running a slightly softer setup, a more compliant setup for the conditions. It could just be that the drivers that have kind of picked up on the Ferrari are just the ones that are naturally talented in wet weather. I'm not saying any of the drivers aren't out there, but these guys might be somewhat specifically kind of more comfortable with the conditions. As we're strapping very close to the back of Jaroslav Roth there. The AK Spots branded, CLR car. Looking up the road, it's such a nice looking car. The road going car is beautiful too. It's credited to being one of the best looking cars in the game, even from the V12 vantage. But no, studying it very close indeed. We also, I did see on the side there's more penalties coming through, but I imagine there's going to be a bit of an influx, so we'll check back on that in just a moment. Martin Lawrence setting the fastest lap of the race so far with the highlighted purple on the left hand side of the screen. A lot going on all at once, Tim.
There's a lot going on all at once. I think this is the Christopher Sheppen that a lot of us are used to seeing. Very feisty, going around the corners, always looking for a way through the car ahead, really making a nuisance of himself as well, just keep poking their nose in, trying to ruin the momentum of Jaroslav Roth here. But Martin Lawrence hoping to do something himself. They're just 2 tenths off the rear of Verstappen, coming through the final corners, really close to the back of that Aston Martin as well. We've talked already that the M6 that Martin Lawrence is driving, really not good in this wet weather. However, the Aston Martin that's ahead of them is. So what I'd say for Martin Lawrence, the goal is here today is simply just damage control at this point. They're leading the championship. They're looking like it's not going to be a very comfortable race for them. So they're just trying to bring home as many points as possible to help secure that lead. Thomas Freck going for an overtake here on Rilano ahead, and it looks like they're going to get that done dusted fairly quickly. Rilano wants to pump too much fire, though, maybe looking for a switch back on the inside through turn 1. No, never mind, they're going to back out of that, and I think that's most likely because different split drivers Milano leading there, so it doesn't want to get into an incident in this wet weather, seeing that already several cars come into contact with each other, and let wreck through without too much of a fight there.
I know this has really become a race of attrition. You know, the cars that started fairly far back, you know, we were literally just saying before the race started, it's hard to overtake here in the wet. And to be fair, there's some truth there. We've not actually seen that many overtakes. So for Milano, you know, starting, you know, a little bit further down the field, you know, already pro cars ahead of them, seeing, you know, cars kind of lose it, cars get taken out, you know, cars not able to really finish the race. You know, for them, it's a case of that's 3 positions. You know, they've just made that time and space up. So, you know, it's just as easily lost as it is gained. So, keeping it consistent will be the aim of the game for that 89 BMW. Jaroslav Roth still chasing down advances, going slightly wide. That allows Christoph Verstappen a chance on the inside of Spoon. That denies Roth the apex, but will have the wider exit. So it's going to be side by side on the run down to 130R, and that's Martin Lawrence behind as well in the well, let's be honest, faster the straight line BMW. Just looking to see kind of, is there going to be an opportunity opening up for him too?
Oh, neck and neck there through the Spoon went Roth and Verstappen. Roth, though, just managing to hold it together despite going wide initially, able to stay in that P2 slot. They were very close together, those Aston Martins. And Verstappen, they're making contact with the rear of Jaroslav Roth, just making a slight bit of contact, seeing a bit faster going through the chicane then. Unfortunately for Jaroslav Roth, that looks like that's going to be them returning to the pits instantly, not wanting to continue with that race. But Martin Lawrence able to get themselves up into P2 there. Verstappen just not able to cover as quickly coming through the chicane. We're going to have a race replay here, see exactly what happened. Roth seems to be quite heavy on the brakes, catching that inside curb as well. And then Verstappen making contact with the rear of the 2AA. Have you spotted something there, Austin?
Yes, I think so. It looked like Roth was losing it on the curb, even like before the hit. Like it looked like coming out the Castro triangle, it looked like he ran over the second curb, and the car just kind of jinked outwards away from him. So I don't know if Verstappen helped him round, or whether or not that was purely part of the contact. I mean, the stewards will be back with us with a decision on that, and we'll keep an eye on the stewarding box. But looking at it now, that CLR Aston hits the second curb, starts to lose it, slows up to try and catch it, and then Verstappen just doesn't anticipate it. I mean, you put the trust in the car ahead. Not that I'm sort of defending Verstappen in this. You know, obviously, any blame aside, you know, the stewards will kind of come to their conclusion. But you know, these guys are so good and so consistent at what they do that, you know, you put a trust in the car ahead to, you know, to stay a good amount of consistent. And it could just be they just weren't anticipating that change of speed. So, no, I mean, to play devil's advocate, it's going to be down to the stewards, but I don't think Verstappen was the sole cause of that.
I think I'm going to agree with you there, to be honest. I think it's going to be hard to call for the stewards. We'll see what they have to say about it. Daly here looking for a move on Southcourt, just towards the inside. That contact there between the Daly and Southcourt. It looks like Daly's the one that's going to stay on track. Southcourt there going to go wide. And that opens the door for Becky and the Connection Loss Racing team. They're looking to try and find a way through the Audi. But going back to what you were saying, Austin, I have to agree with that. I think Verstappen that close to the rear, I don't think there was a lot they really could have done to predict that happening. And they didn't have enough time to react to the instant ahead. So we'll see what the stewards think in that situation as well. Mike Jones making an appearance in the YouTube chat says, bonk, which is, I think perfectly sums up that situation there. Bonk between the two Aston Martin cars. Jaroslav Roth ending their race quite early on as well. Still 42 minutes left to go, so unfortunately for them will not be their second win in the championship. We're going back to the fight between Wilkinson and the BMW 420 ahead. Wilkinson down on the inside in the Ferrari here. Are they going to go for a move? It looks like they're really thinking about it, tucked towards the outside briefly, but they're not going to go for a move just yet through the first turn. Decide that they're not quite alongside enough, and is that racer there going really wide round the corner? It looks like a lot of cars just struggling to keep it together in this wet weather, Austin.
Maybe, but it looks like Kuchiauskas is really just widening that car as well. They do not want Wilkinson getting by, and this is a battle for points too. You know, these guys are in the same class, and it's only Frey separating Kuchiauskas and the 32 Bentley. So, You know, again, as long as the BMW can sort of gain that time, it has the opportunity to gain more points. So it's trying to hold on to everything it can, but is it losing too much time in the process? Is what I'm wondering. As Wilkinson and Marsh go side by side through Degner 1 and Degner 2. And that will be the Ferrari of Wilkinson coming out on top, but that puts Marge into striking range of Racer as well. So going defensive down into the hairpin, gets the car hooked in. A little bit of an, I don't know if that's just a ping or if that was a little bit of oversteer, but does come out in front of Racer.
Yeah, I think that was just a bit of oversteer there from the BMW, really hugging inside of the corner was Marge, just dropping off slightly from Wilkinson. They were neck and neck with not long ago. Our broadcaster Stewie brought up an interesting point just now that some of these drivers may have started with slightly less PSI because the rain was a lot less at the beginning of this race, and therefore now they're struggling because they just have low tyre pressures and they're not in the optimal window that they want to be in. So that's an interesting thing to think about, is whether that is the case for some of the drivers. Omar Rilano currently fighting for that P2 spot in the silver split right now. They're looking down towards Ramos here. They've got a really good run out of that final corner. The BMW has a lot more straight line speed than the Aston Martin does. The Aston Martin just a little bit better in the rain, but Rilano going for a move down the inside of the first turn there, pushing the 69 right out to the side. And that is Rilano up into P2 in silver splits.
Oh wow, that was yeah, no, that was a move. That was textbook. That was one of those moves that in the wet took so much kind of commitment, and they just went for it. That was amazing to watch. That's that's the kind of skill ceiling that we're looking at, that we're trying to look for with this kind of thing. And I think that was a textbook example as to how to overtake in Suzuka in the wet down into T1. Speaking of a couple of like incidents that have happened, there's the stewards have fleshed out some of the reports a little bit more from the last time we took a look. Before it was only the one incident on lap 1 involving steer, but again lap 1 turn 8 involving car 808 and 35, warning for car 808. Incident on lap 1 turn 8 involving 808 and 35, 5-second penalty for 808. And that will be that'll be Ibiza Racer. You see the penalty on the left-hand side of your screen now. Incident on lap 1 turn 3 involving 19 and 127. That's a racing incident. Little few things here and there. Drive-through on lap 2 turn 15 for car number 19 for a takeout on 424. Incident on lap 3, a drive-through for car 34 takes out car number 25, position not returned, and a few other racing incidents besides that too. So, yeah, I mean, it's been a bit of a we praised the race at the start for being fairly clean, but I mean, it's turned into a bit of a free-for-all, really, a bit of a melee.
Yeah, I think the laps following the first lap were a bit more messy, let's say, than we were probably expecting after how clean that first lap looked. So a couple of penalties now, as you said, coming through. Christopher Streppen finds himself back up into P2. They've retaken Martin Lawrence for that second place. Let's see what happened here. I think, judging by how far back they are, Martin Lawrence must have gone quite wide at turn 1. And yeah, they've managed to outbrake themselves. They've unsettled the car and not caught it quite as quickly. And because of that, Christopher Streppen manages to push their way up into P2. So Christopher Streppen now up 1 position after the incident with, oh gosh, who was it? They made contact with earlier. Jaroslav Roth, that's it. Jaroslav Roth out of the race. So that puts up Christopher Streppen into that P2 position. We've looked a couple of times at Reese Wilkinson here as they navigate their way up into P20, looking very feisty in the number 6 Ferrari. And again, I've got to say, the Ferrari just being one of those standout cars today, as being quite good all round on the track, even in the wet weather, is not something I was expecting to see, and I'm not sure you were either, Austin.
No, I mean, let's be honest, with the news of the new Ferrari coming out, was April 12th, it kind of feels like the 488 is sort of old news in a way. It feels like it's been in the, I mean, the first generation of the 488 has been in the game since the game came out back in, it feels like a long time ago now. But yeah, no, obviously the 488 GT3 Evo came out at the same time as the Mercedes Evo, which came out in the Imola DLC. So yeah, no, the fight it feels a bit long in the tooth, but you would never have thought it. You never would have thought that it's actually being replaced in just 2 weeks or just under 2 weeks. Um, no, we made a good point as well of Verstappen getting by Lawrence. I think Verstappen only lost the position in the first place because they did back off after the incident, and they did try to like roll through. They must have thought the hit wasn't as severe as it was. So, obviously tried to give the position back and not gain an advantage, and obviously Roth, unfortunately, towed the car back to the pits, and Lawrence found their way around. So that's how that position changed up in the first place. I got Ernst in the back of, that's Rolano, right? The one, no, it's Santo. That's the Santo in the 134 M4. Not able to make anything stick going down to turns 1 and 2. There's only really one line through the S's, especially in the wet. I was looking at a little bit squirrely going through.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't really race too much going through the S's in the wet weather because, as you said, there's only one line you can really take. So I got on here looking for a way up into P6. It's been on the back of Santo for a good couple of laps now. We're about to enter the pit window too. You can see just 20 seconds until we hit that 35-minute mark left in the race, and then the pit window will open and we'll probably see the first set of cars come in for a pit stop. Danny Santo for the Tier Sim Racing Esports team, the 134 BMW, just trying to hold off against Orns. Like we said, the wet weather, it makes it very difficult to overtake in general. On this track, it basically nullifies a lot of the spots you can look for an overtake on, and we've seen already a couple of incidents coming out because of cars trying to race in this wet weather. That being said, it's definitely not impossible. We have seen a couple of overtakes happen already, and I imagine what Orns is looking for here is just a mistake out of Santo to see if they can fight their way through. Of course, now with the pit window being open, they may also try and go for an undercut or even an overcut on the BMW if they feel like they've got more pace out on the track than Santo in this position.
That's it. I mean, as you say, pit window has opened, and yeah, no. Again, if you're in Orns' position, if you're being held up by Santo, and you're the faster car, then maybe pitting early, trying to come out in clearer air, and just try to run on pace alone, is kind of the way forward. Yeah, just try and clear the air and just run with the pace. There we go. Sorry, I'm falling off my words a little bit, but there's Orns coming into the pits now, and I think they're doing exactly what I just thought they were going to do. They'll get their pit over and done with, be the first of the drivers to actually finish their pit, followed by Jordan Daly, who has a 5-second time penalty as well. And nothing in the steering reports just yet, but we'll get back to that. Again, just get the pit stops over and done with, get yourself back out there. Only a 1 litre of fuel minimum requirement. So I doubt they'll be in the pits for too long. And there we go, there's Orns already out again, or at least filled the requirements for the pit stop, hence the number 1, and next to their race number has turned into a green bar. And as soon, there we go, leaving pit lane now. So about to lose that P next to them. There we go, and rejoining onto the circuit, down in P17, but remember, everyone else also has to stop too, so Igo will be on a bit of a mission, try to take advantage of the clear track ahead of them and just try to put in as close to quality times as they can to catch up to the rest of the field.
Absolutely. I think Orns there, just timing that pit stop to perfection. I mean, you saw the massive train of cars that was coming along this straight that they just managed to peel out in front of there, so Orns could be very happy with the slot that they've managed to push themselves out to coming out of the pits. Martin Linge up here looking at the rear of Tom Bryant. I'm sure Tom Bryant not used to defending against other drivers in the championship, but now looking P13. That's going to be a great finish for the number 42 car there. Of course, Martin Lindrup though looking to try and change. That goes towards the inside as the CLR car on the outside there, looking to just try and catch themselves after a bit of loss in grip, but managing to do it. Tom Bryant stays ahead of the number 9 for now, going down into the spoon here. Again, I think it's just going to be a case of Tom Bryant. They're going to have to be as consistent as possible. You mentioned it earlier, Austin. This race is all going to be about consistency.
Yeah, again, it doesn't help Tom Bryant's case being in that M6. We've seen it before. We've said it before. It's incredibly quick in a straight line. Like the run down to 130R here, it's incredible. But again, just in the corners, people say it's a bit of a boat, and you'd think that the conditions are great for it right now. It's not a fun car to drive in the wet. You see just how wide Tom Bryant's having to run the car. I know that was a mistake, but I also wouldn't be surprised to find there's just a lack of grip that the M6 is struggling with right now. This is not the type of conditions that it really thrives in. The Bentley, historically been very, kind of, I'd say it's kind of mid in the wet, but towards the better end of the scale. And that is the 32 Bentley coming up to the back of... actually, we've just switched over now. I was looking on the side of the screen. That was on the back of one of the Porsches. The Porsche Frey, sorry. So the Bentley is making up spaces too. Van Kampen trying to make a move, going for the later exit on the final corner onto Racer, and pulling into the spray, trying to find a run into the slipstream, trying to find a run down into T1. We've seen some good moves here before. We've seen Rolando make that move earlier in the race. Are they able to lay on the brakes? Racer cuts off the inside line, and that would be Van Kampen not able to make it around.
Ninja up there peeled into the pits, very, very close to Fryer. I thought they were going to actually make contact there with how close they were when Ninja up entered the pits, but Fryer just managing to swerve out the last second to avoid hitting the rear of the Audi, now on the back of Tom Bryant. And a slight bit of contact between the two drivers. Sees Tom Bryant go straight into the wall, and that is the Tom Bryant we are more used to seeing here today. Unfortunately, just hitting the wall there and going to be having to go into the pits. Luckily for them, haven't pitted yet in this race, Austin. Although they're fairly far up through the track now, they do have a bit of a way to go to get back to the pits. It's not race over for Tom. They can go to the pits, they can fix some of that damage. It doesn't look too bad there. Wasn't the most contact we've seen of the wall today. Hopefully Tom can still find something here today at Suzuka.
Oh yeah, I mean, looking at it, it was a fairly sort of, a lot of pace on the impact, but, the car slid sideways, hit it sort of at a diagonal angle, and the damage model on this game is far more forgiving than in other titles like iRacing. A little bit of a wiggle there from Jackson coming into the pit lane. But no, Brian might have picked up a few seconds worth of damage there. It might not even be something even worth repairing, all things considering. But no, I feel kind of responsible for this, because in the chat, I did say earlier, I said when we started the stream, we did make a comment on Bryant's spin. And Bryant did say, it's the only spin they've had today, and then I said it's the only spin so far. So I might have been technically correct there, Tim.
Yeah, I think you may have probably had a bit of a commentator's curse hand in that. Just looking just looking at the YouTube chat now, John Daly said that they pitted and added 0 fuel, so that's going to be the end of their race. They did mention that the race is a pain for them anyway so far, and they've avoided something or other. So unfortunately, John Daly, who a couple of you were supporting in chat earlier, out of this race because they didn't put enough fuel in the car during the pit stop. They didn't put any fuel in the car during the pit stop as well, so simply did not have enough to bring the car around one more time and do another lap. Tom Bryant still out on track, so maybe you're right, didn't pick up quite enough damage there to warrant a pit stop at this stage of the race. Does find themselves though in P13 without having pitted, which means they can be a lot further down the field than they want to be once they do finally manage to make their way into the pits there. 28 minutes left to go in this race, and your leader still Dan Edvardsson, Christopher Streppen in second place, Martin Lawrence P3, Grant Willamot in P4. They all have still yet to pit, but I believe even after they pit will still be in those 4 positions. So a great race so far for Edvardsson, who has led start to finish as it stands. Well, here's Igor Ornst in the number 30 Mercedes coming up to the rear of Tom Bryant. We saw Igor Ornst have their pit stop earlier, but out in a nice load of fresh air, and now they're coming up to Tom Bryant. They're going to want to clear Bryant as quickly as possible if they want to continue to be going as fast as they can in the open air that they've had.
There we go, and that'd be the move just about done. I actually don't think Bryant either fought it too hard, or Bryant might have made a mistake. Now the M6, I don't think it's a damage struggle. You see Lawrence struggling as well in the same car, which was just further up the field. So the car seems like it's been a bit of a handful to drive in these conditions. Actually, no, Martin Lawrence is actually in P2 right now, so either Streppen has stopped, or that would be Lawrence finding a way around. Bryant P14 still chasing down Iger. That's wait, no, that is Christopher Streppen in P1. Sorry, that's Edvardsson, who's got to stop go 30. Was that speeding in pit lane?
Oh my gosh, that must have been speeding in pit lane, because Edvardsson was leading this race. They came into the pits ahead of Verstappen, and yes, Jury has just confirmed in our ears that That is a stop and go 30 seconds for speeding into the pit lane. What a shame for Dan Edvardsen there. They started on pole position. Their pace today was so good and they led from start to finish without too much of a fight after that initial fight with Verstappen and Roth at the beginning. And unfortunately for them, that's going to take them right out of contention for the lead of the race. That means Christoph Verstappen now, your provisional leader. Martin Lawrence still in the fight in that P2 section there. That is such a shame for Edvardsen because, I mean, stop and go 30, that basically ends your race, especially with just an hour to go, because there's not much you can do to recover from that, especially not into P1.
No, your chance of a podium at that point is just kind of gone. I mean, when yourself, Verstappen, and Lawrence are your podium sitters so far, or provisional podium sitters, you just know the pace of those cars is just immense. You know, there's no way you could take a 30-second penalty and catch up to the likes of that. I mean, Willemot, it's not clear on the Delta how far back Willemot actually is, but I can imagine there'll be a fairly significant gap between Lawrence and Willemot. Compared to the rest of the field. You know, they've just kind of pulled away with everything. Verstappen in the pits, followed by Lawrence. So, yeah, no, your race leaders started to make their pits now at the very last second. Only 20 seconds of the pit window remaining. So, deciding to leave the overcut very, very late. Iger coming up to the back of Santo. I think this is the battle as well, where they actually tried to get the undercut on and didn't quite make it. It seems still trying to chase down the BMW, going side by side through 130 yard, backs out, avoids an incident, but has to run slightly wide and will lose time running towards the triangle.
Absolutely, you are right. Ornst was trying to get the undercut on Santo. Of course, has gained a couple of positions simply from other drivers' misfortunes. So they're now fighting for P5, is the BMW and the Mercedes driver. And yeah, I was going to say Verstappen and Lawrence leaving that pit stop till the last second. I think most likely just wants to have as little fuel in the car as possible for these final stints, because it doesn't make a huge amount of difference, especially in the wet as well, but just having a little bit less fuel off the bat, it can really help in the final seconds of the race. Whereas if you go out on a fresh set of tyres and a bit more fuel earlier on, I feel like the overcut here is easier to get off than the undercut, is what I'm basically trying to say there. Freck, though, trying to bring the fight to Southcott ahead. Southcott currently leading the race for the silver class. Not had too much of a worry outside of that, as they've only been racing the pro driver classes around them. But Freck trying to find their way through. They want to clear Southcott here so that they can chase Talenskas ahead. But I feel like at this point, Southcott's just basically saying, look, I've not had to fight anyone in my split yet. I just want to showcase what I can do. I'm up in PA. I'm going to have a good time and race.
Yeah, I mean, you have to give Southcott that kind of credit. You know, running into the top 10, the only silver class car to do that. I mean, Rolano is, you know, we've seen how dominant Rolano can be. The racecraft they pulled through in that overtake down at T1 that we saw earlier on in the stream. You know, Rolano has proven himself to be quite a capable driver, especially with the qualifying pace. So for Southcott to basically kind of come through the carnage and emerge so far up in P8, that's credit. And we've said before, even if it's not fighting for points, they've got every right to be on the track. They've got every right to kind of participate in that race as well. So yeah, I mean, looking down the order, Iger still chasing down Santo, coming down into 130R yet again. Looking at the move on the inside, was that contact? I think I saw a little bit of a jolt there from the M4. It didn't look like braking, and there wouldn't be braking at that point anyway. So I think that might have been a slight bit of contact there between the Mercedes and the BMW, but it was kind of no harm, no foul. It seems no one got taken off. Everyone's kind of just sitting on the track, and the order has not changed. So, I mean, this fight continues.
I'm not 100% sure if it was contact. I think it was just Santo being quite aggressive on the defence there, and Ornst also trying to go for an overtake, because I feel like at this point, if there is contact, it's going to spell trouble going into T1. A fight on their hands. Santo out braking themselves there, goes way too wide, which opens the door for Ornst to go down the inside there. Santo has a little bit worse momentum as well, picking up some gravel around the side, but still able just about to hold on to it, going through the start of the S's there. A huge defense for Santo, who it looked like had basically lost that after the first part of turn 1, but just managing to bring it back round with enough momentum coming through turn 2 into turn 3. Well, further down the field, we've got Ramos trying to find their way up onto the podium. for Silver Class, trying to bring the fight to Josh Lation here. Goes for a move towards the outside of the S's there, but as you said, there's only one way through the S's for these cars. There's not going to be any overtaking happening here, and because of that, Ramos just going to have to settle for going back behind Lation in the number 97 Ferrari there. And I mean, what a race out of those two. I'm watching the wrong battle. This is Ramos and Fry, Austin. So Fry here looking for a way through Ramos. It's, you can see Lation's the car actually ahead on your screen now, but Ramos absolutely defending with their life. They don't want the pro driver to come between them and the car in P2 of the silver split right now, but Ramos just able to hold on to that position.
I mean, that's an interesting situation, though, if you are Ramos, because it's one of those, you're going to lose time fighting a car that's not in your class. You know, again, it gives you... It gives you a bit of a buffer between yourself and the car in front for sure, but if that other car is faster than you in it kind of naturally anyway, you're going to lose more time fighting it. You may as well just let it by, lose as little time as possible, and then let that pro car slow up the guy ahead of you, because then the pressure's then off of you. You just cling to the back of the pro car, and then, you know, the pressure then becomes on the person that you're actually racing. So, you know, I'm not sure if this is the smartest sort of game plan move from the 69 Aston. But again, it is for a track position. They are entitled to fight for it, even if it's not, you know, necessarily the most recommended option. As we see, I got on the inside of the BMW M4 of Santo once again down into T1. And this time, it looks like they will make it stick. You have to give Santo credit for the attempt on the last lap, because even though they kind of start to fall behind, they kind of know, you know, they must have known that the track, you know, falls you know, only like through to one line, and they had that inside line. So where they fell back in position, they were able to very quickly gain that one back.
Yeah, Santo did an amazing job on the defense there. Unfortunately for them, Orange does manage to fight their way through. And oh, look at this. Fry goes really wide off the track at turn 1 there, opening the door for Ramos to gain that position as well. So Ramos up into that P13 now has to clear Breck ahead, who's in the pro split, if they want to try and bring the fight back to Josh Lation, who they were originally fighting a little while ago. And yeah, going back to the Orts and Santo fight, I mean, what a fight that has been. We've been watching that now for a good couple of laps, going back even before the pit stop as well. And Orts just every opportunity they gave to that team. What was that car at the side of the road there? It looks like the number 89 there was inside the wall at one point. They're also yellow flagged at the side of the track currently. And yeah, they are. There they are. That's Omar. Is that Omar Rilano? Yeah, it is Omar Rilano just coming out of the wall there. Something happened going to the wall. I think that was just driver error. I don't think there was any contact there. And again, spinning as they try and recover too. I think they've just slid in the rain there, because there wasn't any contact between them and another car. But that is unfortunate for Rilano there. But yeah, Orns just a brilliant job, really trying to force that overtake every time they came round to that first turn. And eventually Santo just looking very squirrely going around that first corner, wasn't quite able to defend it. But a brilliant fight from those two for 5th place.
Oh yeah, just massive racecraft shown, you know, massive skill in racecraft shown between the two cars, going down for that battle. Looking at things as well, it's been a while since we came back to it, but looking at it now, incident updates. We were up to P12, yeah, lap 12, turn 4 involving 35 and 808, 5 seconds for the car 808, that was for avoidable contact. And incident on lap 14, turn 11, involving number 42 and the 181. I believe that'll be the incident between Frey and Bryant, going down through the second Degner, and that's 5 seconds for car 181 making avoidable contact with the 42. So that'll be the incident, I believe, that put Bryant into the wall. But that raises a very interesting point, and obviously don't quote me on this. Obviously I don't know how I've never been in the steering box. It's a dark and scary place, but I presume they will work through incidents in order. So if that's the case, then the incident between Verstappen and Jaroslav Roth, that doesn't look like it's been brought up, so it might be... Oh, okay, so, no, sorry, Stewie in my ear, sorry, what I'm saying is it was brought up in class as a racing incident, so, yeah, that means that Verstappen, for all intents and purposes, is currently running absolutely provisionally P1, and with no incident coming there, with no report coming their way for that contact.
Yeah, I think we were in mutual agreement there that that was going to be hard for Verstappen to avoid that contact. Of course, like you said, Roth was already sliding before the contact was made. They'd already hit the inside of the curb and would lost track of the car. And it looks like Fry here going to get a position going down the inside of Ramos there, who went incredibly wide, going round the corner, the hairpin. And that's going to be Fry back up into that P12 position at this point. They're just trying to showcase what they can do against the silver split driver. These two have been battling it out for a while now. But yeah, going back to the Verstappen and Roth incident, I think we can all be in agreement there that there was no way Verstappen could really avoid that and make the situation turn out differently. Whilst we've got a slight downtime in the action, I'd like to thank a couple of our partners who helped to make these races possible. You have AK Esports. They are leader in the esports management and competitions around the world, and you can find out more about the services they provide by going to akesports.it. We also have Digital Motorsports, who have top brands, and they're your one-stop shop for everything sim racing. You can use their new sim rig builder. If you go onto their website at Digital Motorsports, leave the link in our description below, and you can build your own sim rig from the ground up. I definitely recommend checking that out. It is really, really cool. And just even if you're not intending to buy it, it's just cool seeing the sort of sim rig that you can build and looking towards the future as well. 15 minutes left in this race. Steven Van Kampen for Ibiza Racing, trying to find a way now up into that 17th place position. They are fighting another person in their split, the 420 BMW, and they're going down the start-finish straight, just a little bit far off here. And the McLaren, I feel like the McLaren as a car now, Austin, starting to fall off and lose popularity. There was a point in time when a lot of people drove the McLaren as the safe option, but going through the last couple of championships I've seen, definitely not popular anymore.
No, it seems to have fallen out of favour with the Bob too, and let's be honest here, the 720S is starting to get a little bit long in the tooth. I mean, McLaren have a bad habit of leaving models of cars until the very last minute. I mean, look at the 650, with the 650 actually still being in this game, and I believe they've just come out with the 720 GT3 Evo, or I can't remember what they've called it. It might be this GT3X or whatever. I know they've done a few variants, but the new racing version has come out too. So I think Paddock Motorsports and the British GT Championship are using that in real life currently too. So as for whether or not we'll see that in the game, I can't really comment. I can't really say too much on. But no, as I said, the 720S is getting long in the tooth, as you were saying. It is starting to fall off in terms of pace compared to the cars around it. You know, the Mercedes has had an update, the Ferraris had an update and getting an update. The Bentley hasn't seen an update. That's an incident between Steven Van Kampen and one of the BMWs. I think that might have been Kuchiauskas going down into the hairpin.
Yeah, let's have a look at what happened in this race replay. There is Kuchiauskas making a late break and contact there with the... is that Steven Van Kampen they made contact with? Yeah, it was, and you could see flashing their lights. Not happy with how that situation turned out. Well, let's have a look at the front of the field. Here's Christoph Verstappen, your current race leader, made contact with Roth earlier on out of no fault of their own. After Roth started to spin in front of them, and from then Christoph Verstappen has been leading this race after Dan Edvardsen, who was initially leading the race, picked up a stop-and-go penalty of 30 seconds for speeding in the pit lane. Martin Lawrence had a quick taste of what it was like to be ahead of Verstappen after the Roth incident, but has since fallen back behind after going wide on turn 1. That being said, though, looking at the lap times coming out of these two drivers at the front, very, very similar indeed, and Martin Lawrence not completely falling off the back of Verstappen. At one point earlier, that gap was 1.6 seconds. Now it's back down to 1.1. So potential in it for Martin Lawrence, and with that fastest lap as well, you can definitely see a comeback is on the table here.
Oh yeah, I mean, looking at the gap between Willemot and Lang, it has come down. It was 15 seconds last time I checked up on it. So that does mean that Willemot is catching up to the back of Lawrence and Verstappen as well. So say that as Lawrence just goes a little bit wide, kind of cuts the triangle, and again...
Commentators curse, everyone.
Yeah, here we are, I think... yeah, no, they got a chance to catch up. I mean, it's still possible. We've seen how many cars have made mistakes. You know, a lot of these cars, you know, look at the likes of Romano, really, really talented driver. It might be in silver class, but still, you know, very, very quick. You know, a lot of consistency there. You know, making those kinds of mistakes and kind of sending themselves off by on their own accord. It could, you know, let's not rule out Verstappen does make mistakes. And speaking of mistakes, that was Van Kampen running into the back of Kuciauskas into the hairpin. Again, it seems like just a moment ago we saw a very, very similar incident, and that will result in Van Kampen losing a position to Gohan as well in the 480 Honda NSX. Marvin Stierz managed to recover a few places from the early race penalties, but only up to P22 overall. So I'm not entirely certain where that puts them out. That's caught in first, Lation second, Ramos third, the Surami in 32, Rolano in fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. That's ninth place, I believe, in silver class. So barely running inside the top 10. So, but still, that's still a comeback. They were running dead last at one point in this race. So you have to give them some credit there. And the Lamborghini, not known for being strong at all, let alone in the wet.
Yeah, absolutely. They're already driving the Lamborghini, which you've said is not a popular car in ACC at the moment, not a very strong one as well. That being said, that they are leading the championship for that silver split, so doing a phenomenal job is Steer so far. Fell to the back of the pack with a 5-second penalty as well, I believe. So that's a pretty good comeback drive just to be able to get back up into the top 10 in their split, top 22 overall. Here's Tom Bryant, who we saw had an incident earlier, saw them go straight into the wall after contact with another driver. They're now trying to climb their way back up through the field, bringing the fight to Racer in the 808. We'll see if they can do anything as they come down towards turn one here. Down on the inside, it looks like Tom Bryant is already through. Racer not wanting to pump too much fire, though maybe goes for the inside here as Tom went ever so wide there, but Bryant just able to hold it together, brings it back in front of Racer again. I don't think Racer there was going to be too feisty with Tom. Again, different splits, both towards the bottom of their packs. Just want to get on with their own race at this point, I imagine.
That's it. It's been a long race, I think, for everybody. I mean, we're 50 minutes into the race now. Well, 50 minutes and 50 minutes and 35 seconds to be exact. It's been a long one. I think it's safe to say for a lot of the drivers here, and I think for everyone watching, it's been a long one. A lot of mistakes being made. It's been entertaining for sure. It's never been, it's not been short of action. Going down into the Degner, that's Stefan Van Kampen again. Going down into the Degners, and I believe that might be Kuciauskas in the BMW there. That might have made a mistake earlier, like later on in the lap, because they were ahead of both of themselves. And the, that's Kia, no, it's Kuciauskas, no, it is Kuciauskas, that's the 420. That is the 420, so, no, settling in, that is Van Kampen behind Kuciauskas, and Gohan has found a way around Kuciauskas too, so that is the NSX kind of pulling ahead towards 130R there. Took me a moment to kind of get my bearings, there's a lot going on at screen all at once, but that is the current running order.
That is a lot of cars navigating their way around each other. What's happened here, though, one at the side of the field. This is Ryan Daniels in the number 66. Let's have a look going through. I believe this is towards the end of the S's here, and it looks like just losing grip at the end there. The back of the car throwing itself out and turning as well. Not too bad of an incident compared to what we've seen today. We've seen a lot worse happen on track for definite, but either way, still an unfortunate situation that puts Daniels to the back of the field. Further up, Fry now trying to take on Freck ahead. The 181 Porsche has had a lot of pace today. Started from the very back of the field after joining right at the end of qualifying, and since climbed their way up into that 12th place position. Did pick up a 5-second penalty along the way. If they can put enough distance between them and Ramos, that's still going to be holding on to that 12th place, and they are holding on to their points position as Ninja up behind is 10 seconds off Fry, who's in front as well. So Fry here just looking to try and clear Freck as quickly as possible and then put some distance on them. Freck going wide is going to help this situation. Is coming through the spoon. They are now neck and neck with each other. Fry really trying to push the battle here. Pushes Freck, keeps him on the outside, and up into P11 goes Herman. Fry now will be looking to clear the Porsche that is just ahead of them. Never mind, this is Freck now trying to get back on Herman. Fry looks towards the outside of the corner, not able to do anything. Now ducks towards the inside, coming down though towards the final chicane. Can they do anything? They're still a bit too far back for now. Fry very tight with those corners, going to navigate their way through nicely. But with that 5-second penalty, Austin, they need to put some time on Freck quickly within the next 7 minutes if they want to hold on to that P11.
Yeah, I mean that's that is going to be the aim of the game, really. I mean that 5-second penalty doesn't sound like a lot, but yeah, that is going to be the difference between keeping those points and not keeping them. And that Porsche, I mean, we talk about car balancing a lot, but again, I'm looking down the order. It's the only Porsche I'm actually seeing is Freck trying to make a move on the inside of the tail end of T1 or at the start of T2. But not able to fall into the rhythm of the S's and will not have the line that Frey will be able to take. And as we've said before, that is the only line. It's the only 911 in the field, and it's quite a notorious car. It's incredibly quick, but it's incredibly squirrely as well, and not the easiest car to control at the best of times. So in the wet, even more difficult as Rolano coming up to the back of Suhaimi in that Bentley. Suhaimi doing a great job kind of keeping them behind. Rolano obviously, you know, was the pole sitter for the silver class for this race. Had that spin and just seems like they've just kind of fallen back down the order. Not even in the top. That's 5th place, right, in silver in silver class. So has lost a fair amount of points there, but not the worst result in the world, so that's still a chance to recover points, especially when you're still getting a net points kind of gain on Steer, who obviously had that kind of hellish start. So
Yeah, I mean, P5, it's still a great result at the end of the day. I'd certainly be happy with it myself. Of course, it depends on who you are, though. If you think that you have a lot more pace than everyone else in your class today, then maybe P5 isn't exactly where you want to end up. So I think it depends on the driver's personal opinion, or someone's going to be very happy with how their race is going so far is this guy on your screen right here, Christopher Sheppen, just sliding their way through the S's. Martin Lawrence trying to close the gap behind. Martin Lawrence is your championship leader, has won 2 of the races championship so far. Christopher Sheppen currently P3 in the championship, but only 18 points behind, and this race win today, if they can secure it, is certainly going to help them push that advantage. So Christopher Sheppen here doing an amazing job. Whilst you've got a bit of downtime, let's take a moment to mention some more of our partners quickly. Driver 61 helps sim racers fulfill their potential on the track. You can get one-to-one driver coaching with them, and you can get 25% off that driver coaching as well by using the discount code that we have in the description of the video. The coaches over at Driver 61 have helped thousands of sim racers refine their craft and unlock their untapped potential. A lot of the drivers that you'll see out on the track today have probably gone through Driver 61 at some point. Go Setups, they provide expertly made ACC setups for all skill levels. They're built by the fastest professional esports drivers and the sim racing engineers, and you can get a setup that is fully tailored to an esports experience, and it can be safe alternative for anyone driving as well. All you have to do is visit the link in our description, and you can browse their premium setup shop. Then, of course, our final partner is Fanatec, who probably do not need any introduction with any of you in the audience. They are a global leader in the high-end sim racing hardware. They provide load cell pedals, direct drive bases, brilliant racing wheels as well, and they always strive for the highest quality in every piece of hardware they design. You can help us out as well if you use our affiliate link in the description when you make a purchase from Fanatec. It will help us with things like server costs, and also with a partnership with Fanatec as well. Well, here's Herman Fry, who we talked about a couple of times today, making a move on Joshua Nation. They're pushing themselves up into that P10. Josh Nation not going to put up too much of a fight there. They don't need their race ended by a driver in a different split right now, let alone one that has a 5-second penalty on them as well. That's going to be annoying for Freck, though, who wants to try and keep that gap as close as possible. 2 minutes 30 seconds left in this race. For Sheppen's leading Fry up into that P10 slot. We've had an exciting day so far, Austin, and I don't think it is over just yet.
No, not at all. I mean, Lawrence is only like, 2.9 seconds, 3 seconds behind Verstappen, and still holds fastest lap of the race so far. I think that is a back marker between the two of them, which will slow Martin down. But, you know, don't discount anyone. We've seen that back marker, in fact, was the Audi that we saw spinning at, I believe it was Spoon. So, yeah, no, again, Verstappen could still make a mistake here. Lawrence could make a mistake. Willamette could find a burst of speed. We don't know. Like, about 2 minutes to go, and it's still between these two drivers. Well, potentially even more than that. So, again, I'm falling off my words a bit, Tim. I'm sorry. It's been a long race. It's not really let up at all. There's been kind of action all the way from turn one up until right now, and as you say, it's still going. Verstappen coming down the exit of Spoon. You see this layer of debris on the back of the Aston there. Not had an easy race, to say the least, coming down to Spoon. I believe this will be for the second. No, we should get another lap after this, right, Tim?
Yeah, absolutely. They're just coming to the line now, so we'll have one more lap in the race once Verstappen crosses the line there. Martin Lawrence is starting to drop off the back. It can be for a multitude of reasons, but most likely the M6 just not quite having the pace that Martin Lawrence wants it to have across the track overall. We did mention the Aston Martin looking much better than the BMW today. Further down the field, you got Kwiatkowski looking for a way through the 420 BMW driver ahead, just falling off slightly coming out of the S's there as the Aston Martin got a little bit unsettled. Just looking further up the field again though, Austin, I noticed Grant Willamette finds himself in that third place. What happened there? I did not catch it. No, it looks like a driver facing the wrong way.
That was steer. It literally coming through Dunlop. So they just started to aquaplane you, running in the spray. Little bit of oversteer. It looked like it came out of nowhere from the angle we saw it at. Yeah, just offline. Maybe hit a problem. You know, again, when you go offline, especially in a fast corner like that, the water hasn't been pushed off track. You know, you might even see a dry line on some of the camera angles here. You run onto a wet patch, you hit a puddle, you start aquaplaning, and that kind of speed, there's nothing you can do. And I think that's exactly what Steer did. Steer just put the right rear tire onto, or the left, yeah, that was the right rear tire, sorry, onto the wet patch, and just started to lose the back end. So, no, sorry to interrupt you there, Tim. That was a fairly heavy incident.
No, absolutely. I mean, I just caught that at the back of like my eyesight there, so thank you very much for picking that up. But Christoph Verstappen now on a good final lap. George Kwiatkowski, though, going for what may be a final opportunity at a move here on the 420 head, looking towards the inside. What are they going to do? Are they going to do anything? They are. They're going to send themselves right down the inside there, but they need to catch it before going too wide off the track there, as Kwiatkowski tried to make a move back, going down the inside. Now goes the 420 driver. Contact between the two. That is going to be the 420 facing the wrong way. Kwiatkowski in the 212 does manage to survive that incident, but does go off track slightly and will pick up a little bit of damage on the inside, though it shouldn't matter too much in the final stages of the race. Well, here is your race leader. Christoph Verstappen started in that P3 slot. Had an incident early on with Roth out of no fault of their own. Was just a racing incident, and now they're going to come across the line for their first race in the championship. Your race winner today, Christoph Verstappen, in the number 7, comes across the finish line. Martin Lawrence secures that P2 finish as well, flashing themselves across the finish line. They're going to be really happy with the result that they finished in today of starting in P4. And Grant Willamette, after a very strong practice in qualifying, will bring home that final spot on the podium. A brilliant drive from all 3 drivers today.
Oh yeah, I mean, I said at the start of the race, this might have been Verstappen's best chance at a race win, and I mean, it kind of materialized, didn't it? You know, the conditions, the car choice, it all kind of came into line. Really, really tough fight with both Roth and Lawrence, but at the end of the day, they're still able to kind of pull it through. Not been a great day all in all, though, for the CLR cars. Obviously, Roth not finishing the race, and I believe it's one of the Mercedes as well as Tom Bryant also being taken out a little bit earlier in the race too. Tom's had a bit of a tough race. Not the easiest race for the CLR cars, but they've made it to the end, and no doubt they'll be proud of P2.
Absolutely, I think CLR cars, like you said, have 2 of them DNF the race. The other one, Tom Bryant, currently in last place overall, but Martin Lawrence bringing home a P2 will definitely cheer them up. Here comes Omar Rilano across the line. They started in P1 for the silver split, but instead P1 race winner goes to Southcott, who finished in P8 overall. Chris Southcott with an absolutely phenomenal drive in the silver class there. Joshua Lation bringing home P2 in the 97 Ferrari, and then Abo Dos Ramos in P3 in the silver split, P13 overall. An absolutely brilliant drive from all three of those drivers. This is a late move going on here, though. Stefano Ricciardo goes for a move on steer, the championship leader so far in that silver class, and they do. Ricciardo getting it off after steer makes yet another mistake, going wide there. And unfortunately for them, they're going to drop down into P24 overall. Ricciardo finishing in P23. What a brilliant finish from them. That's P22 and P23 respectively. But there you go. There's going to be your final lineup of the races. I think that's going full throttle into the wall there. But Christoph Verstappen, your race winner of today. Martin Lawrence P2 for the Connection Loss Racing team, and Grant Wilmot P3. Jackson finishes P4. I got odds manages to get one up on Danny Santo. They finished P5, and Santo will finish P6 effectively. Salenskus in P7 overall. Chris Southcott P8 overall. Rybecki P9, and Joshua Lation rounds out your top 10. Well, Austin, I think this has been a phenomenal race today, purely because of the action that we've seen on track. Of course, we've had a lot of instances. It's been a very unfortunate race for a lot of drivers. But in terms of a viewer's race, I mean, that was absolutely brilliant seeing, brung all the chaos that we needed halfway through the season.
Oh yeah, I mean, you can't. I seem to say this at the end of every race we do, but you can't really ask for too much more. I mean, the racing, it was spotty in places, but given the conditions, it's such a hard track to actually practice good racecraft here, especially in the wet. But no, we definitely saw action of its own kind, and where the stewards have been kept busy, I think as a viewer's race, I think you're right, Tim. It's just been absolutely fantastic.
Well, if you have enjoyed the racing action today, then you can come back and join us next week on April the 7th, where I believe we will be taking on Watkins Glen in the penultimate round of the Friday Championship. So don't go anywhere if you want to catch that. I'll be back with Austin yet again and Stewie on the broadcast for that race. Starting then on April the 10th on the Monday, we will be bringing you the Maserati Cup. That is in place of the usual Monday Championship we run, and Don Dalton will be bringing you the action there and will be helping you to run alongside that championship. Also, don't go anywhere if you've enjoyed the esports series that we have been running on every third Sunday. We'll be back with Indianapolis round 3. That will be Sunday the 16th of April. Make sure you put that one in your diary. We've had a very exciting championship in our esports series so far, and you're absolutely not going to want to miss out on that. Of course, make sure you don't miss out on that. You're going to want to hit the subscribe button on our channels. We're now on both YouTube and Twitch, so make sure you follow us on Twitch as well. Also, hit a like on this video if you've enjoyed today's race, and hit that little bell icon. You'll receive notifications whenever we go live as well. Well, Austin, some final thoughts on today's race, because I've got to say, I think I've absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. And Christoph Verstappen, I mean, that is the race they need for the championship.
I think so too. No, we said at the start, and this was going to be their best shot at kind of getting that, and they've obviously they've kind of come through and achieved it just by nothing heroic, just sort of just staying consistent, and that's the kind of best thing you can hope for in any race, let alone a race of attrition like this. So yeah, no, I think Verstappen had a great race, and they really all just came together.
Absolutely, the commentator's curse working out in a good way in that sense. You said that Christoph Verstappen needed this race, and it was their best shot at getting a P1 in the championship, and you're absolutely right, that is the first race win, helping them to bring them back closer to the P1 fight with Martin Lawrence. Well, I'd just like to say one more quick thank you to all of our partners who have helped to make today's race possible. Of course, I went over them a little bit throughout the video, but to remind you who they are, we have AKE Sports, Digital Mode Sports, Driver 61, Go Setups, and Fanatec. Make sure you go to all of our links in the description, check out what they can do. They all do really interesting different things, and are well worth checking out if you want to improve your sim racing. Of course, a big thank you to all of you at home in the chat as well. It's been an absolute pleasure having you join us today, and we look forward to seeing you next week for the penultimate round. Also, a big thank you to both you, Austin, and you, Stewie, in the broadcasting booth for helping me navigate today's race too. It's been an absolute pleasure, guys. But that is all from us today. We thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you next week at Watkins Glen for the penultimate round. Goodbye.